And so welcome everybody to the How to Handle Your Money Abroad workshop. Thank you for being here today. My name is Rachel Rigoli, and I am an advisor in the Study Abroad office. And this session is pretty quick. It's only about, I think, 10 slides at the most, and then we'll have time to answer questions at the end. Ellie, do you want to say hi, or do you want to stay behind the scenes?
Yes, I'd be more than happy to say hi. I can put on my video. Hi, everyone. I'm a graduate intern at the Study Abroad office, and I'll be helping with some pre-departure orientation this semester. So I'm excited for all of you guys to go abroad and help you on the journey.
And Ellie, feel free at the end, if there's any other tips that I've missed, feel free to throw them out as well. So, okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We're going to cover using credit cards abroad, cash before and during, debit cards, what you need to know about using your debit card abroad, opening a local bank account overseas, and then also managing your money. So the first topic is credit cards, and students often ask us if you need a credit card when you're studying abroad. And we tell you that it's not required, but it's usually a good idea to have a credit card. And the reason being is you may have emergency expenses that you didn't plan for. For example, let's say you need to visit a hospital and you have to pay out of pocket until your health insurance reimburses you. You might need a credit card on hand to pay for that expense. So again, it's not required, but we suggest that you carry one with you when you're overseas. So when you do take a credit card abroad, we recommend that you tell them that you're going to be traveling. Not all credit card companies require that you set up a travel notification, but some do. So it's a good idea just to call the phone number that's on the back of your credit card and let them know where you're going to be traveling and what the dates are. The other thing that's really important is that you ask your credit card company about setting up an alert system. And what I mean by this is if they believe that there is fraud, how are they going to communicate with you? And a lot of credit card companies will send you a text or an email. So if they believe that there is fraud occurring, so let's say you're now in Korea and you're trying to charge something and they put a hold on your credit card, what would happen is if they alert you by text, you can just confirm that it's you using the credit card, and then they let the charge go through. So make sure you have talked to them about how they will communicate with you about fraud alerts. Also, I always recommend to students that they don't use their credit card as their main way of accessing cash or money. So that means you don't want to do cash advances. When you do a cash advance with your credit card, this is really like taking out a loan against your credit card. And so they will charge you interest fees for that service. And so it's really not a good idea to use your credit card like a debit card. Also, some countries, especially in Asia specifically, are very cash-based. So we do sometimes have students think that they're going to be using their credit card for every little purchase, like we do here. We may go to a 7-Eleven and use our credit card for a $2 purchase. And a lot of places overseas, they are cash-based. So it really depends on where you're going. Some are going to be more credit card-based, but some will be cash-based. So that's something to think about. I would also recommend that you stick with Visa or MasterCard. If you have Discover Card or American Express, those cards just aren't really widely accepted overseas. So I would recommend that you travel with a Visa or a MasterCard. And then the other thing I wanted to alert you to, and a lot of people don't realize this, is that US credit card companies, a lot of times they charge a foreign transaction fee. And what this means is they are going to charge you to use your credit card abroad. And it's a service, it's a service that they, because you're using it overseas, they charge you this additional 1% to 3% fee. So it's something that you'll want to talk to your credit card company about to find out if they have this extra charge. So to give you an example, if you spend $100 and then they have a 3% foreign transaction fee, you're going to be paying, that extra 3%. Now, Capital One does not charge a foreign transaction fee for you to use your card abroad. So if you have Capital One, you're all set. If you don't have Capital One, I would suggest when you call your credit card company to talk to them about the fact that you're traveling overseas, find out if they have that transaction fee. You still have plenty of time to potentially get a new credit card. So if your credit card company does charge that fee, either you just don't want to use it a lot, or maybe you look at getting another credit card. The other thing too, you want to make sure that you get your PIN number for your credit card before you travel abroad. And the reason being is some countries will ask you to enter your PIN. They use the chip method, and then you have to put your PIN in. There's usually a way to override it if you don't know your PIN. But if for some reason you have an emergency and you have to use the cash advance on your credit card, you would need a PIN to be able to use that cash advance. The other thing and last thing I want to mention about credit cards is make sure that your card doesn't expire while you're studying abroad. I've had this happen myself. I was overseas. I didn't even check my card to make sure that it was valid through the time that I would be abroad. And it expired. My credit card company sent me a new card while I was away, and the card that I had with me became useless. So make sure you check that before you leave. So now I want to talk about foreign currency and cash, using cash abroad. So students will ask about, should they take a bunch of cash with them in US dollars? And I typically advise students not to take a large sum of cash with you. And the reason being is if it's lost or stolen, then you're really out of luck. There's nothing you can do. It's gone forever. So if you feel comfortable taking a little bit of money, maybe $100 US or something to have on you, certainly do that. But I wouldn't take like $8,000 and pay all your housing at once with a large sum of cash. So be very careful with cash. And then the other question that will come up is about foreign currency. And foreign currency is, if you want to get the local currency before you travel overseas, you can certainly do that. And the way to do that is by contacting your bank and ordering the foreign currency for the location that you're going to. It usually takes them about 7 business days to get the foreign currency for you. And they do charge a fee for that. So it's not free. So my recommendation for you is, if you feel comfortable, that you wait until you arrive in the airport and you use your debit card at an ATM in the airport. If you're worried that there may not be an ATM and you're going to not have local money on hand, there's always kiosks that you can exchange US dollars for local currency. But I have never been to an international airport that doesn't have ATM machines all over the airport. The other thing that you can do is you can certainly look up the airport, the name of the airport online. You just Google it, and they'll tell you what services they have in that airport. And there should be information about banking. So I would pretty much guess you would be finding multiple ATM machines in the airport, unless you're going to a tiny airport in the middle of nowhere. The good news about using the ATM at the airport upon arrival is that you're going to get the best exchange rate. And so this really is the best way to go if you feel comfortable doing it that way. The other recommendation I have for you is to download the app XE. And XE, there's xe.com, and then there's the app XE. Either one is fine. But it's a currency converter, and it's really easy to use. You can add different currencies, and then you put in the amount, and then it converts it into whatever currencies you want to see. And so it's nice to be able to start getting familiar with the exchange rate for the country that you're going to. So now I want to talk to you about debit cards. And I'm sorry, I think the panel is blocking some of the information on the slides, so I apologize about that. So debit cards are really what most students use to handle their money abroad. This is really what you're going to be using to access your money. And one thing I want to recommend is if you decide that you're not going to take out small amounts of cash at the ATMs while you're overseas, that you decide, okay, I'm going to use my debit card once in a while and take out a large amount of money. Don't do it in the morning and then have the money in your backpack and you're roaming around. Make sure you do it and then go straight back to your residence and then just carry around the cash that you need with you for that day. So if you decide to go that route, you know, take the money out and then go home and then where it's safe. Also, the other thing I want to mention is that I don't know if you realize this, but ATMs, your bank will set a daily limit on the amount of money you can withdraw per day. So make sure you check with your bank to find out what that withdrawal limit is. A lot of times it's around 300 US dollars. But if you call them and you tell them that you're traveling and you'd like to increase that limit, they can do that for you over the phone. So it's something that you should be aware of what the daily limit is. Also, just like with your credit cards, make sure you notify your bank that you'll be traveling. And this is really important with debit cards because you could put the card into an ATM machine, and if the bank decides that they think that your card is lost or stolen, they can freeze the card. And I've known students to have their card swallowed up by an ATM machine while they're overseas. So make sure that you do what's called a travel notification. You can usually do this on your bank's website when you log into your account, and it's usually called travel notification. But if you can't find it online, just give your bank a call and they can walk you through it. If you're going to be traveling out of the country where you're studying abroad, make sure that you add the travel notification for every country that you're going to, and you're going to give them those dates as well, so that they know that your card is not being used by someone else. So it's important that they don't freeze your card. So this takes me to the next tip, which is make sure you have a backup plan if your debit card is lost or stolen. And I know not everybody has two bank accounts, but I always travel with a second debit card. And it's sort of an account that I barely use, but I just have it with me just in case. And I keep it in a separate location than the other debit card. And that way, if like my wallet's stolen or I lose it or anything, I still have another debit card to use until I can get a replacement for the other one. The last thing, and this is probably the most important takeaway from this whole session today, is making sure you talk to your bank about their fees to use your debit card abroad. If you have a Wells Fargo account and you go to a Bank of America ATM machine, you not only get charged by Wells Fargo, but then B of A charges you as well. Well, that is going to happen abroad as well. And you really don't want to rack up a ton of fees. So if you have Wells Fargo and there's no Wells Fargo where you're going and you're using different banks and using their ATM machines, you're going to rack up a lot of fees. And so make sure you talk to your bank, find out about using it abroad and if there will be fees, and if they have any sister banks in the country you're going to. So some banks will have banks in different countries that they work with and that you're allowed to use their services and their ATM machines free of charge. So make sure you talk to your bank about that. I remember I had a student come back, and I don't remember how it came up, but he said, "Oh my gosh, I know you said this and I didn't really plan ahead, and I spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on ATM fees." So don't do that. Make sure you plan ahead. The other thing, and this is safety related, is make sure when you're taking money out of an ATM machine, and this is something good advice for in the US as well, be aware of your surroundings. When I'm traveling overseas, I always look for a ATM machine that's enclosed where you have to swipe your card to get in. And I know that I can take my money out safely and not worry about somebody standing behind me and I'm not aware of that. or even going into the bank if you can. That's really, you just want to make sure that you're paying attention when you're making your withdrawals. Also, if you decide to open a new bank account before you leave, make sure you give yourself enough time to get your debit card in the mail. So I've had students tell me that they didn't really plan ahead, and then like 3 days before they were leaving, they opened a new account and they thought they could get the debit card at the bank. But most banks will mail you the debit card, and it usually takes 7 business days. So make sure you plan ahead with that as well. And then the other, when you withdraw money, like you arrive in the airport, you're tired, you've been on a long flight, you're jet lagged, and you're walking over to the ATM machine to get your first withdrawal in local currency. A lot of times it's sort of confusing because you're not sure what the exchange rate is and how much money you should be taking out. So that's where the XE app comes in handy. Like maybe you decide, okay, I'm going to take out 200 US dollars. You can put that in your app and see how much you would then take out in local currency. Don't worry about needing to speak the local language. ATM machines abroad, when you put your card in, it will ask if you would like to do your transaction in English, and you can choose that option. But it's always a good idea to have an idea of how much you're going to need to take out in local currency. And I've been traveling where I haven't really planned ahead, and numbers came up and I punched a number, and then afterwards I'm like, wait, that was only $20. So plan ahead and use that XE app. And then this is another tip for traveling. This doesn't happen in a lot of countries. I've noticed it happening in the UK a lot, where if you're in a shop or a restaurant or the airport and you're buying something, the clerk might ask you if you'd like to have the charge made in local currency or US dollars. And the first time that ever happened to me, I really was like, wait a second, what do I do? So I ended up looking it up online, and you always want to pick the local currency. And the reason being is if the shop or the restaurant is charging you in US dollars, they are deciding the exchange rate. And I can tell you right now, they're not giving you an exchange rate. So they're making money. So you want to say, charge me in local currency, and then you're going to pay the exchange, whatever that exchange rate is that's set by the banks for that day. Also, again, with your debit cards, make sure they don't expire while you're abroad, just like your credit card. And then I recommend, if you're looking at getting a new bank account, so let's say you call Wells Fargo, there's no sister banks, you really don't want to deal with Wells Fargo when you're abroad, I highly recommend the Charles Schwab debit card. And the reason being is they have no fees worldwide. And so I have this card even for when I need to hit the ATM in the United States. The way it works is they will allow you to use they don't charge you to use any ATM worldwide. And then if there's a charge by the local bank, so let's say you're in the US and use B of A and they charge you, Charles Schwab will rebate you that charge. So they'll give you an ATM rebate. And it's almost too good to believe, but I have it myself and it's true. There's no gimmicks or anything like that. I'm going to put well, you know what? I won't oops, sorry. It's not going to let me copy it. If you Google Charles Schwab high yield checking account, it will take you to the page to open the account. I believe it says no minimum balance, but I believe you need about $100 to open the account. And it's going to open 2 accounts, just so you're aware. It's going to open up a brokerage account and a checking account. And the brokerage account, I think it instantly is approved, but the checking account takes a few days to be approved. And when the checking account is finally approved, that's where you want to put your $100. Because once there's money in the checking account, that will generate Charles Schwab to send out your ATM card. So in the mail. So if you have $0 in your checking account, you're going to be waiting and waiting for your ATM card to come, and it's never going to come. So, and they're really great. You can always call their 800 number on their website. If you have any questions, if you want to try and open it over the phone, I'm sure they could do that for you. I was told it's taking about 4 to 6 weeks to get everything processed. So if you're leaving in mid-August, you need to move quickly. For those of you who are leaving in late August, I still wouldn't wait too long. I would go ahead and get that opened. So a plan could be that you use the Charles Schwab as your daily debit card, and then you use your home US bank account for emergencies as your second debit card. So the other question that comes up sometimes is about you opening a local bank account. And, this can be difficult. It's not necessarily easy in some locations. When you have your on-site orientation, they will talk about whether it makes sense to open a local bank account or not. If you're going abroad for a full year, it's usually a good idea because then you have an ATM card for a local bank that you can then use the ATM machines around the country. But if it's just a semester, you have to decide if it's worth the hassle, if it is somewhat complicated. And then if you do decide to open a local bank account, make sure that you know what the monthly charges are and if there's any closure fees as well. So the last slide is about managing your money. And I want to mention that I want to talk about a power of attorney. And I don't know if you know what a power of attorney is, but a power of attorney is a legal document where you provide a trusted individual. It could be a family member, it could be a friend, it could be whoever that you trust, to give them power to act on your behalf in your absence. So the reason why I'm bringing this up is sometimes things happen while you're away, and things may happen with your bank back home, or things that you need someone to deal with in person on your behalf. And if you have a power of attorney, if you've given it to somebody that you trust, they can walk into your bank, show the power of attorney, and then the bank official can talk to them. And they're basically acting on your behalf. With a power of attorney, you can specify exactly what you want them to be able to have the rights to handle. So you can say specifically banking only, or you can just make it, where it's anything. So if you get a bill in the mail that you didn't know about, the person who has the power of attorney can send that in, and then the official that they speak to over the phone can legally talk to them. Power of attorneys, you can just Google those. There's usually free templates online. They do need to be notarized, and a notary, you can usually find a notary at like the UPS store. They'll charge you $10 to have it notarized. But I would highly recommend you consider a power of attorney while you're abroad. The other thing to think about with managing your money is, how are you going to access money? So for those of you on financial aid, if you expect to receive a refund after all your tuition is paid, if you're going like on an EAP program, if you expect to get a refund to then use for your daily expenses, you're going to want to make sure you do that direct deposit authorization that lives in the UCAP portal. So that would be a way for EAP to put any excess financial aid funds into your into your bank account for you then to access with your debit card. For those of you who are getting assistance from family or someone else, you're going to need to think about how they're going to get money to you. And usually the easiest way is for them maybe to have access to your account. So maybe they have also a debit card and they can put money into your account that way in the US. So if you have Charles Schwab, they can somehow electronically transfer, or if you have Wells Fargo, they go to an ATM machine for Wells Fargo, or you can put them on your account. So I know for my own daughter, who's a junior at UC Irvine, she's going to be studying abroad. She has a Charles Schwab account, and she's giving me her login because she trusts me enough to be able to go in and do things and move money around. So think about how you want to handle your money and how you're going to access your money. The other thing I want to mention is budgeting. A lot of times students, because foreign currencies sometimes feels like paper money, They may not be, it doesn't feel real. It feels like monopoly money. And so you're just spending away. I encourage you to really create a budget for your time abroad. And there's a website that a colleague recommended. It's called Nubeo. And it's a really cool website where you can list the country that you're going to. And it lists out the average costs for everything from like buying a bottle of water, a subway ticket, a night at a hotel. So it's really good for being able to budget. So if you're thinking about traveling around in your study abroad country, it gives you an idea what you might be spending. Also, I want to mention in terms of budgeting, a lot of the tourist and student visas do not allow students to work while they're abroad. So something you can ask your country advisor in our office, or reach out to, if you're going on an EAP program, you can reach out to EAP and find out if you are allowed to work. But even for the countries where you are allowed to work, I tell students, you shouldn't plan on it. Make sure you have the money that you need to be able to, get by, and, your housing, your food, etc. Because, even if you are allowed to work, you may not find work, especially if you're only going for a semester. Okay, so I have one pro tip at the bottom here, and this is really helpful. If you add your bank and credit card apps to your smartphone, it is a lifesaver. If you, let's say you misplaced your debit card and you know it's in your room and you're like, I'm not going to report stolen or lost because I don't want to deal with getting a new one. You can go into the app and you can just lock the card and then unlock it. Or if you need to report it lost or stolen, you can do it through the app. It's also good to have the apps on your phone because you can check your balance, etc. So I really am a big fan of having your bank and credit card apps on your smartphone. So I told you this was going to be pretty fast. So now I am going to open it up to questions, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see everybody. Okay, Isabella, you raised your hand. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. What's your question?
So I was kind of wondering, I have cash, like US dollars that I am going to be taking, that I want to, get I'm going to France, so I need it to be in euros. And so I know you recommended things for, getting stuff out of your bank account and everything, but how or when do you recommend that I do that exchange, and where? And yeah.
Okay, so I would recommend that you have your debit card, and when you arrive in France, that when you see, and I don't know if you heard the part about checking with your bank to make sure you know the charges to use ATM machines abroad. I know some people arrive late. Did you hear that part?
I did. I have physical cash though, so I was wondering about that one instead of a card.
Okay, so you have US cash that you're planning to take with you and then you want to exchange it.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so usually the airport is not going to be the best exchange rate. So if you're taking a decent amount of cash, I would probably just do a little bit at the airport and then go into a bank in your host city.
Okay, so wait till I get there to do that exchange.
Yeah, I mean, you could order euros from your bank. You could call your bank and find out how much they charge to that, and what exchange they'll do. And if you feel more comfortable getting on the airplane and having all your euros in your, with you, you could certainly do that. But they do, the bank does take usually about a week to get foreign currency in stock, and then you'll have to find out what they charge for that.
Okay, and then if I wait till I'm there, what's a good place to go for that?
So you could go into any French bank, and you'll have to, if you don't speak French, you're going to have to, deal with the communications of explaining to them that you want to exchange US dollars for euros.
Okay.
But I do caution you from taking a lot of cash, because I do worry that if for some reason on the airplane it's stolen. I mean, I doubt that it would be, but you are taking a risk when you take a lot of cash with you.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then I see a question that came in, I think through the chat. Chris asked, do I need 2 cards, 1 credit, 1 debit? I'm going to a country that is card-based, so I don't believe I will need cash often. I made a travel credit card, 0 form fee, good job. I don't think of getting a debit card due to the fees they usually add to withdrawals. I was planning on having just the credit card. Would this work, since my country is known as a very huge card country? I absolutely would have a debit card. I would not just study abroad with just a credit card, because there are going to be times you're going to need cash. And if you don't want to get the Charles Schwab debit card, and you know there's fees associated to use your debit card, you know, in your host country, if you do need cash, what you can do is just take out a decent amount of cash. So, you know, you don't want to pay a $10 fee to take out just 20 US dollars worth. Maybe you want to take out $200 or $300 worth. So, but I wouldn't travel abroad without a debit card. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions. Okay, well, or feel free to put them in the chat if you can think of anything. For those of you that arrived late, this was recorded, and we will share the recording. And if you think of any questions after the session, you're welcome, everybody. Feel free to send us a message in back. We're here to help you. And we wish you safe travels, and please join the other sessions. We have a bunch that are coming up, and they're going to be excellent. So great seeing everyone tonight.